Hello and welcome to the Leftovers Rewatch. We're on episode 2. Don't be ridiculous.
Hey, man, before we get started, can I say something?
No.
Please?
All right.
I mean, since we're talking about Golden Age of TV stuff, hold on a second. Wow, that's me. Sorry. I just want to acknowledge that we lost Michael K. Williams today. He played Omar on The Wire. Very important Golden Age of television.
Also Chalky.
Chalky White, and Hap and Leonard, and he was just in Lovecraft Country, and we're robbed of future.
Do we know what happened?
Yeah, I mean, early reports are they found a lot of paraphernalia where he was.
Oh, okay.
But that's an early report, so
right.
It's neither confirmed nor denied. But it just happened. The news just hit a couple hours ago, and it's a rough one. You know what I mean? So I just want to acknowledge him.
I actually just saw that right before I got on here, and because earlier I had noticed where John Paul Belmondo had died, and I knew him from French New Wave cinema, and so I just got on and noticed that Michael Williams had died as well, and I was like, oh my gosh.
There's a short piece that I had only seen today that I guess obviously did some time ago, in which he has a conversation with 3 versions of himself. That he talks about his role as an actor and the concept of being typecast, and it's like something straight out of Leftovers. And it just shows like the brilliant depth of him as an actor, but also as an individual, in terms of being able to see, what his profession's about, but also where we are as a society. So you can just see based on the responses on Twitter just how well loved and respected he was. So thank you, Ethan, for initiating this.
Yeah, man. Just in this group of TV shows we love to talk about, he's a big part of those, and I just wanted to say something about it.
I haven't actually seen The Wire, but seeing all this love come out for it, I'm gonna have to.
It's once you get to me, it took episode 4, and once I got to episode, because I almost quit, but everyone kept saying how great it was, and I said, and I heard Lindelof on that. I don't like to mention the podcast, Nerdist, but he kept saying how great. I said, all right, I'll stick with it, because I started it and stopped. And then went back and finished it, and it is amazing.
Yeah, and it has that what I would call it was a Game of Thrones problem, but it started as a Wire problem. There are so many characters that if the problem is people will get lost in not knowing who's who in the beginning,
right?
But after that, the characters, you love the characters, and it's devastating, and its impact is based in the fact that if you watch it now, you're not really going to see too much of a difference of how things are today. And it was made 20 years. At this point, it's about 20 years since it came on the air.
It's no Southland.
I'm enjoying Southland, but Southland is definitely a different kind of show. I am enjoying Southland.
And with that, back to Leftovers.
All right, so now we start off with, and I can never remember the guy's name. I just call him Moses. Moses falls off from the tower, called Plunk. Then we see Nora talking to Sandy. First I wrote Brett Butler because I couldn't remember her name either. Luckily, Matt said it. And first she said, well, she got in trouble because he liked pain. He liked to suffer. So it sounds like it's almost like Matt, right?
Another biblical, Job reference,
And one of the reasons why I didn't listen to Jane Jack going now is because I hate hearing my own letters now. And this episode is the worst example because I think Jay was sick, and my whole letter was about this guy. That's why I'm talking about it now. It was about the gentleman in the tower, who's played by Turk Pipkin. And I'll just go over why real quick I wrote the letter, because it'll be more interesting now. He was also on The Sopranos. He was Janice's boyfriend.
That's what because I'm watching that, and I went, is that the guy that was on Sopranos where he kept falling asleep?
And he used to be Harry Anderson's partner.
Okay.
way before Night Court. And they would make these videos together, like these magician scoundrel videos. And my brother being a magician, we had a bunch of those videos growing up. He would be on them, featuring Harry Anderson and Turk Pipkin. And then he comes to, later in this Sopranos leftovers thing. That's what my whole letter was about, that Mike Bloom didn't read great. I love you, Mike. It was a weird letter. But yeah,
maybe it was the way it was written.
It was horrible. It was not his fault at all. It was a terrible letter. Terrible letter. But just the fact that they got into Jordan right before they put up the encampment.
Mm-hmm.
He got up on that pillar. Or what was it? They tried to crucify him?
Yeah, they tried to crucify him, but she got in trouble for that. She got one nail in, and those bastards came and stopped her.
Right.
I thought this was a free country.
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
I don't think that there's certain things that just, to me, would be like, I can't do this. I can't drive a nail into someone's hand. I couldn't. I don't know how you do that.
Guess your faith isn't strong enough, Jack.
I guess not. It's just too gross. You're hitting anyway.
But what I like about this whole description that she provides is that, like, obviously him being on the pillar and him giving the letter to Michael in season 1 that's be sent to Australia, like, there was obviously something like where we're not sure if this should be something that we need to pay attention to or not, right?
Right.
Here they clarify that it's just, no, this is a guy who just was, dealing with his own grief and suffering in his own unique way. More eccentric than most people, but probably not much else there.
And you kind of feel for Sandy too, right? Because he's been up there for what, 5 years? She said,
but you can kind of get the sense from the way that she described it. It's not like she didn't say, I told him to come down, that I needed him, but he ignored me. He just talked about how he wanted to stay up there, and prove himself to God, and he's done.
Well, she said he didn't talk to me, he didn't touch me, he didn't do anything, and I was his wife.
Yeah.
You see where she'd be kind of bitter.
And she was kind of bitter.
Yeah.
I think also she was also kind of playing that, I guess trope in real life where the woman stands beside the man, even though, especially like in religion, the dutiful housewife will just kind of like sit back knowing that the husband got the call from God or whatever. I've seen that a lot. And so you also have that where she would be just nonchalant, like, sure, okay, you go up there, but obviously, like you said, after 5 years, it may be getting old.
Yeah.
And really like, it's a really great, I don't know if they had this planned out in season 2. I'm pretty sure they didn't. It's a really great retcon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just taking what they have and putting it together to make something new.
Mm-hmm.
And then Nora talks with other people about, because she says, if you don't believe me, because she says, you just happen to be looking at him when he departed.
Mm-hmm.
At that moment when he departed. Because she obviously, Sandy goes, okay, I want to be paid. Right.
Well, or it's not just about the monetary part, right? It's what we see later on, her basically almost, what's the right term, Caleb? You're a religious expert. Beatifying him, right? Turning him into a saint.
Deifying?
Not deifying. Beatifying is when you turn somebody into a saint. Deifying is when you turn someone into a god.
Okay.
Because you see that painting later on. But the point is, the point of this whole scene to me is like we're seeing just like how good Nora is at sniffing out BS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, to be fair, she doesn't believe in anything.
Right, but the point is that like she's been probably on every case that she's been on in terms of like discovering like, sudden departures or secondary departures. They've all ended up being false, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So they're setting the tone for her, like you said, not believing anything, and then to see where her Achilles heel is later on in the episode.
Well, I think the last time she was really willing to believe something is when she thought she was a lens, right? When she thought she was the cause of the departure.
Right, and then Penny called her up and talked about some demon.
Right.
On Christmas.
Yeah.
But like these people didn't do a really good job of getting together and getting their stories right. Like he ascended, or he popped. He just popped like a bubble. That one guy said.
Flickered out was like
Yeah.
one, right?
But I don't think these people like got together and tried to tell a fib. I think she just did a good job of canvassing all the people who were around there, right?
Correct.
Right. That's just to show how thorough she is, that she can basically figure out.
Plus,
She can approach it from all angles, right?
Yeah, but she's also got her own whole flock out there that she's been working on.
Right.
But she's also hurting, so she wants other people to hurt.
Yeah.
Right. She doesn't want anyone to be happy.
And she
Are you talking
doesn't.
about
Are we
Nora or
talking?
Sandy right now?
Do what?
Are you talking about Nora or Sandy?
I'm talking about Nora.
Oh, okay. I was thinking Sandy.
Well, well, Sandy's the type person. Everything we've seen of her, she doesn't want it. She's just a miserable person, right? She's just not happy. But Nora's really not happy, right?
Oh no, this whole episode's called "Nora's Not Happy." We didn't talk about the credits. We should. It's
Perfect Strangers music.
Perfect Strangers music.
Right. Okay. There we go. And
Reference number 1.
yeah.
I'll talk about more about that later.
Well, I guess not really number 1, right? It would be. Wasn't he seen in an earlier episode?
I'm just talking about for this episode.
Oh, right. Okay.
In fact, actually, I should say, I mean, it's 1 or 2 because the title of the episode, "Don't Be Ridiculous," is Balki's catchphrase.
Yeah. So, so I'm sorry to backtrack, but this is what we do, right? Season 1 had 2 or 3 Perfect Strangers references. Kevin Sr. was watching the show twice.
And Amy may or may not have been watching it.
Amy may or may not have been watching it, there or not. Inside Kevin's head, Amy was definitely watching it. After he saw his father in the hospital where he was watching it, oh my God. Okay. And then they said all 4 members had departed. In the second season, we saw a little clip with Mark Lynn Baker where he faked his departure and they caught him in Mexico.
Yeah.
John was watching the TV in like the first episode.
Yep.
Right.
So this whole new leftovers, new season, new vibe, we get to this episode, and one of the things they can't have money for this season is a new title sequence. So they have to figure out something to do. So they have different songs over the title sequences, right? Because they were given a shorter episode order and they had to take that big crew to Australia, right? Right. So they had to save money somewhere. So this is one of the great instances, one of the like 3 or 4 I really like in the season of what they do over the credits, which is "Don't Be Ridiculous," which is the catchphrase, and that song, which I recognized right away. Did you guys recognize it right away?
Yes, I did.
Yes, just because I knew it was a Perfect Stranger episode.
Yeah.
So
I haven't ever seen the show outside of the knowledge I know
You
of.
didn't miss
The
anything,
Leftovers.
Caleb.
it was funny when it was on, but
No, it wasn't.
I don't think I'd go back and watch. It was funny.
It was like
funny.
TGI Friday. It was terrible.
All those shows were great.
When it was on, I was a much younger man, and I did enjoy an episode or 4.
I was a kid, and I already knew it sucked.
Yeah.
But I love it in Leftovers.
But also the thing is, I forgot what they were called. The names of Damon Lindelof and Tom Perrotta in the credits are their Wu-Tang Generator nicknames.
Okay.
So it's like the Lonely something. I didn't write that down. Everyone said it, but that's where I got your names from when I posted them on Twitter.
Thank you.
Now it makes sense. We find out from one person that the preacher spent all night with Sandy. Now, are Sandy and Matt having a little, something going on?
No.
I wouldn't be surprised.
All right. We got a maybe from Caleb, a no from Eckhart.
No, I think it's, it's like,
I wouldn't put it past him, but do I think he is right now? Probably not.
I don't know if people catch the 4 of us talking in a room in the middle of the night. Is there something going on, or are we just talking about the leftovers? They're just talking about Jesus a lot.
I'm assuming she wasn't in a coma, so okay, right.
No, I mean the straight line is to the fact that he helps her. She goes to him, asks him for a favor, wants to, he talks about it later. He wants this guy to have as much dignity as possible, even if it means stretching the truth till it breaks.
All right. Well, I like because Nora barges in and says, is there something you want to talk about? Something you want to tell me?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, what? And then you can tell he's frustrated about Mary leaving because he says, Sandy, she gave him all the dedication. She took care of him, all this different stuff.
Well, before that, he assumes that she's here for the book, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
She's so like, I'm not even touching that. I'm staying out of it.
Yeah.
But you can see the frustration in Matt that Mary took off.
Yeah, and he's got that, very, very TV tropey nosebleed.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Show but don't tell.
Yeah, right.
Well, she finally gets at him that Moses had a heart attack and he died.
Yeah.
And she goes, and then she said something, and Matt says he deserves a decent legacy. Mm-hmm. You're not that cold heart, or something like that. And she goes, let's go dig him. Where'd you dig him? Or where'd you put him? Let's go dig him up, or something like that.
She's like, are you going to have to dig him up, or I am?
Right. Yeah, exactly. She was just, she ain't putting up with it. Right?
And the amount of emotion and history between these two in the scene is insane.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, I mean, I'm just going to let you guys know I've gone back to an old format. I'm going to have like a spoiler section at the end where this conversation will come up again because it's a big one.
Yeah. Well, he goes, did I ever lie to you? And he goes, yes. I was standing outside. You told me my parents had gone to heaven, that they wouldn't be feeling the fire that they were burning to death. He goes, they are in heaven.
Right.
So that's what he believes.
But she has a great line where she says, I can see the lie wheel turning in your head. It's almost like fan service, because we all know like Matt to be maybe not directly lying, but he bends the truth left and right to his will. And we love it that Nora just, shoots from the hip and says whatever she, wants to in the most like creative and cruel way. So we get both of that here.
Yeah. Then we go, Kevin and Nora are going up the tower, and Kevin's, he's securing himself in. He's not going to fall off the tower. And it was some good banter going back and forth, and, he's digging through this stuff, and he goes, oh, you're not going to believe this one. And it was him with a killer whale.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, Ethan, is that any sort of reference to anything?
No, man. I think the reports from Turk are he's still alive. He's a great guy. He's a fun-loving guy. He does lots of things. He does lots of charities. He's very active in everything. And I'm sure he was like, hey, I have this picture of me in a whale. And they're like, we need to use that.
Exactly.
Something. So
I like that.
But did you also notice the very base level like communication that Kevin and Nora are doing
about laundry baskets?
Yeah. Like it's all surface level, and anytime it goes anywhere near something, Nora shuts off, gets sarcastic. She's shitty to John about the book. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I meant to ask about that. Like, she's referring to the New Testament there, right?
Right.
I don't know why she roped John into that conversation. I mean, is he actually? He's not one of the people writing it.
He is.
Yeah, he's a big part of it with Michael and Matt.
Yeah.
Oh, so he has been working on it.
Yeah, he's a witness. He shot Kevin point blank in the chest.
Okay, so they're using his somehow he's okay. I got it. I didn't realize he was that actively involved in it.
Yeah, we should name the apostles. They're Michael, Matt,
John.
and John. Right.
Just missing Luke.
Well, I was going to say John comes by to pay his respects because Michael was a friend of his. You think Michael would have come by and paid his respects, right?
He probably did earlier.
Anyway, but that's when Nora says, hey, I've been reading your book. Kevin left it in the bathroom. It's a great read.
Well, Nora's not going to be shitty to Michael, right? She'll be shitty to John.
Yeah.
But I mean, is that shitty, or is she just being sarcastic, as in like, don't be ridiculous?
Yeah, she is.
I don't think she's being shitty. I think she's being. I agree with Caleb. She's being sarcastic. It's like
she's like, "Ooh, I found the book."
You guys are nuts. That's basically what she's saying.
Yeah.
But I mean, she can see like on John's facial expression, and again, I missed that big point until now, both the first and the second rewatch. Is that he takes this stuff really seriously, and he's actually like hurt by what she says.
But Nora doesn't care.
Exactly.
Hence, she's being shitty. When you're sarcastic with someone that can't take it, and you know that they're being shitty.
Yeah.
Well, is it you're being shitty, or that person need to toughen up a little bit?
Well, it depends on if you want, like,
what's my name? Jack. I don't know.
If you want to be nice to people, then you probably, take a step back when you see their body language and facial reaction to something, right? And then you say, "I was just joking," but she doesn't do that.
She doesn't do that because she's not. I don't think she is joking. All right, she's being shitty.
She's being,
but she's Nora, and he should know that from her.
And that's why he does it. That's why he's like, "You guys have a nice day."
Yeah, he just leaves because he's like, I don't want to.
Because last season I would have shaken the thing and had you fall off because that's what I do.
Yeah.
But I don't do that anymore.
But it's interesting because we are seeing throughout the episode like a build from like, okay, it's funny to talk about the lie wheel and Matt's head is turning, to now you're basically like taking shots at your neighbor, and it's just going to get progressively more vicious as the episode builds.
It certainly is.
Well, they come down and Kevin gives Sandy her husband's personal effects. He says, "I'm so sorry for your loss." And that's when Nora goes, "Oh yeah, that's right. Sorry about your loss." And Sandy gives her a, she was smoking.
Smoking her coping mechanism.
Yeah.
I'll just be here smoking my coping mechanism.
Basically telling her to. Yeah. But to be fair, Nora was calling her out because she was lying about what happened to her. Her husband didn't depart. So can we blame Nora on this one?
Right. So I'm really confused. So before we go move forward, I need to know what page we're all on in regards to Nora doing what she does this episode.
I'm cool. I'm not cool. Well, I understand the pain she's going through. I mean, she's obviously not. I mean, we find out later she broke her own arm because she had the tattoos of her children's names. Then she realized, I can't have that on there. I mean, she couldn't even have that on there because she can't talk about it. She's just not in the right. Again, like we said this first part of the last week's episode. Oh, everybody's happy. Well, they're not happy. They're still as miserable as they were before. They're just not happy people.
So right. I just wanted to, like, anything that I say, have a disclaimer that I feel that Nora is suffering in silence this episode. And when she's being rude or, whatever to John and them, I think it's because she's literally going around, popping people's beliefs and being like, that's not true. And she's like filling people in on that, obviously, and it may be harshly or whatever, but I feel like she's not wanting any part of that because she's internalizing it. And so everything she's either laughing off or pushing to the side. And when the book enters the picture, she's just having to joke about it, trying to joke about it with everybody else around him to try to make sure that nobody else is getting serious, because she knows that a belief like that can implode. And she's well aware of that. So I just, from my thoughts about the character of this episode, I guess I felt like I needed to preface that. And yet let y'all know ahead of time.
Well, plus one of the things that what made her happy was Lily, and Lily was taken away from her.
Yeah.
Right. So now even though Kevin and her, I think they do care for each other. Lily is what changed and brought Nora back to, okay, I have a purpose again.
Yeah. And I mean, I think what this episode really emphasizes is the fact that the loss that she's still dealing with, meaning the loss of her 2 kids. So that, to me, the loss of Lily and the loss of her 2 kids are the overarching themes of this episode.
Right.
Like, to me, the book is just something that's like, it's not really that big of an issue to Nora this episode and the rest of the season.
Yeah, I really think the book is like an extra annoyance to her.
Yeah.
And I don't think that she's even thinking that deep about the book, Caleb.
Yeah.
that it could blow up to be something. I think she thinks it's absolutely nothing and not even worth wasting her time on. And if anyone, including Kevin, starts to get a whiff that it is something to be taken seriously, she's not going to be able to stand for that.
But I mean, it's a really interesting contrast because, obviously Kevin's taking this really seriously, and these three people around her, I mean, literally neighbors and her brother are taking this stuff super seriously. And she's like, this is just nonsense, right? Meanwhile, we're going to see during this episode how the gears in her head turn when somebody comes with something that is even much less evidence that she might be able to be reunited with her own children. And that becomes like the thing that drives her, almost crazy for the rest of the season.
Well, she wants to believe.
Yeah. So there is there's such an interesting dichotomy here between Kevin struggling with his fine explanations for his immortality and her potentially being able to be reunited with her children.
Exactly.
And I think she feels that, like, with the man on the pillar, that isn't real, and it goes back to how, I believe season 1 or something, she was telling somebody, your pain isn't real. And I think when it's a blatant lie like that, and there's a lot of other people that believe it, I think that she doesn't like that.
it could be too that he was almost like the GR. I mean, he wasn't getting in people's faces, but he was not talking. He was watching people. I mean, he was, and we know how she treated the GR.
Well, they make a note, later in the show about the differences in dying versus departing. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what Nora's honing in on here, where this man did not depart. He died, and her departure grief is so defined within her that it, death is so separate, and she's trying to understand, later how Erica can wrap herself around that and how it relates to Nora. But I think that Nora sees everything so much differently because she was the 1 in 128,000 or whatever. So
yeah.
But she was going to turn around and tell the group that he didn't die, he didn't depart, and Kevin said, "No, hey, have a good day, God bless," all that fun stuff.
God bless.
Whatever he said.
Exactly.
Did he say God bless?
Yeah.
Because then she said, "God bless," like you said.
Yeah.
Anyway, then we have Nora getting her cast off. Is there any better? Have we all broken a bone here?
Well, hold on a second. Sorry, I have not. But before that, Kevin says to Nora, she was like, "I'm nice and calm." He's like, "You're the nicest, calmest person he knows."
Yeah.
And I just think that anything that points to what may or may not be happening in the future is interesting to point out. Sorry to go back for that. No, I've never broken a bone because I'm a lucky, indestructible person.
There's no better feeling in the world than getting a cast off.
Okay, we'll trust you on that.
Just wanted to say, I've had a couple, and it's like, oh my god.
We'll ask you and Nancy Kerrigan.
Yeah, you had like pen marks. They go, well, how did those pen marks get there? I don't know, because you're scratching yourself. Anyway, she gets the cast off, and then he says, and it was an intern, orderly, said, "Yeah, you saw someone that you broke your arm, you slamming your arm in the car door." Just why would I do that?
The look on her face is the look I use for the card for the show. It's the same look on her face that she gives to Kevin in a couple episodes. And this is her stone cold face. This is why she's such a good investigator, right? It's a face that literally says, "Don't be ridiculous."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she actually says, "Now, why in God's name would I do that?" And I found that very interesting because of her not wanting anything to do with that, and just like you mentioned, Kevin mentioning the God bless thing, and her making fun of it right away.
Right.
And here she is using the word God just as if she's a different person.
My whole thought was, I was like, all right, how does somebody do that? How about if someone stick their arm in the door and just slam the door on top of it? It's almost like the nail in the hand. I mean, how do you do it to yourself?
You're probably just in a lot of pain.
I get it, but it's just like wow.
Well, I think it's also one of those things that shows us like how much next level her pain is, and they keep hammering that home with how deep it goes with her.
Right.
It should.
Well, then she gets a phone call from Mark Lynn Baker, MLB, Major League Baseball,
and he's calling on behalf of a third party.
Right. And
this voice is dubbed. This is not the same voice that was used in the trailer. And I'm just saying that from ear because I watched the trailer last time. And this was one of the big hooks in the trailer. Do you want to see your kids again? It's a quick cut. And I think the voice is different.
Well, that's what he says. He goes, someone says, please call. Phone call says, would you like to see your kids again, your children again? And to me, I'm like going, all right, that's a crappy thing to say to anybody, right? Because I'm thinking, okay, this is a con, right? Are we all thinking that at the time?
Of course.
But he's calling from St. Louis, so that makes it different because it's a saint, right? No?
Totally.
And then Nora calls George, who's eating it looked like Mad Men. He was eating some kind of unhealthy sandwich.
It's just, I love the DSD people. They're always like in the middle of like their second or third lunch.
Yeah.
The bureaucracy working hard.
Did you guys notice the poster when he hangs up the phone behind him?
But tell us.
If you don't see someone, say something.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's perfect.
Nice. I did not see that. No.
I do like how they incorporated a Judy Garland song, so that was nice.
We'll get to that. I got something to say about that.
He was. They asked him what he was doing on top of the. He was suffering. She made a sarcastic comment about him suffering.
What was he doing up there? He was suffering. But it's kind of like, what was the thing with the smoking? It's like the stupid questions that they would ask.
And then Mark Lynn Baker. George goes, that's the guy from Perfect Strangers. And the guy across was like going, what? He didn't know who Perfect Stranger was. And then we find out Nora is going to St. Louis. But Kevin comes home, I'm assuming, to put a bag over his head. Right?
Yeah.
100%. Like, that's totally his lunch break. That's what
he's like, hey! Because he says, I was going to get a new shirt.
Yeah.
And he's pristine, right? He's pristine.
Yeah. A new shirt means I got to bag it. So...
Okay, so it's really interesting that the DSD people are over here having their second or third lunches during the day, and they've kind of like understood the departure and accepted and have to do all this paperwork, while we have characters who are still struggling with the departure, and their lunch break is 2 or 3 times a day, trying to suffocate themselves. So you can see some people who've like learn to live in this new world and some who haven't.
That's a good point.
And Nora, who's right in the middle of both those worlds.
Great point. Yeah.
The show's been phenomenal since almost like the second episode or third episode of just trying to portray like this very powerful federal government that is completely cynical about all this stuff. I mean, think about the way those two just faceless agents, they're not even agents, they're just members of the bureaucracy deciding if they should basically hunt down Holy Wayne or not.
Right.
So that, I mean, I would go to say that, like, it's one of, maybe very far down on the list, but one of the points the show's trying to make is just like what a cynical federal government in a situation like this would look like.
Well, I'm sure like Nora has and George and they probably have met people that are trying to scam, the government out of money. Plus, maybe they didn't have anybody directly. They knew that was. It
goes past that. It's just the fact that to them, it's just another case after another case after another case, another departure. And you're right. There's the cynical part comes from like the people who are trying to scam the fraud involved and stuff like that. But for them, it eventually just all becomes numbers and statistics.
Well, I think in order to do the job, that's how you have to do it. I mean,
well, that's what the job turns you into.
Yeah. You just get to the point where you're just like going, I just don't care anymore.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that
I'm going to have my third lunch. I don't care.
we did have a glimpse of the lady in the with the eye patch.
Right.
Where she just
She
didn't
was
care
feeling
where the GR went, lived or
Yeah.
died. So
Yeah.
that gave us a pretty big hint on how they felt.
But
But there's people in the world today. I mean, it's realistic because
Yeah.
they're just.
Well, I mean,
mean,
look, this is like DSD is like DMV, right?
yeah,
It's supposed to be like the Department of Motor Vehicles, the same level of like cynicism about the world. It's just take a number, fill out this form, right?
Well, the difference though is the DSD. You're at least you're dealing with people that their lives have been, uprooted. Whereas DMV, you just don't care because you're being bitched at all day because people don't want to be at the DMV.
Yeah, but I mean, eventually what the point is that these bureaucracies eventually end up in the same spot, which is the people that are doing the work. Doesn't matter how much idealism they entered the job with, they get to the point where they just get ground down.
well, also, like, let's dig in a little bit. These people are not born wanting to do departure work because departure work wasn't around when they were born, right? They got transferred from some other thing or some other job they were good at to handle bureaucracy on some level. So no one grows up wanting to work for the DSD.
Right. And I think most of them who work there probably like have accepted like, okay, this is what happened and this is our job. Whereas like other people are running around just like, how could this happen? It's got to be God or Holy Wayne or, whatever. But I do think some people join the DSD like Nora because they want to see that questionnaire. They want more questions. So you have, like you said, Ethan, she's in between two worlds. And it's very, very interesting to see where she's leaning at any given time.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot
and what we don't know yet, and what we should point out is as soon as he asks that question, she's not on the DSD anymore. And it took me a while to understand that.
Wait.
What?
Unpack that?
She's as soon as she gets asked that question, they trigger her with that question. Do you want to see your children again?
Mm-hmm.
It's no longer about DSD business for her for the rest of
exactly.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Let's see.
So they're at home.
They're at home. Kevin comes home. They go, I love you. I love you too. The whole thing. It's just, she goes, I gotta go. There's really no deep communication about, okay, she's just going, because he comes in and she's packing was something I said.
Right.
And she just goes, oh no, I'm going to St. Louis. I mean, they're in a committed relationship, but they're not very, they've never been very, what's the word I want? The communication level is not, it's just like.
Well, you see, I disagree. I'd say probably their honesty and directness was a lot stronger up until the point where she lost Lily.
Probably, yeah.
And I think since then, like, they're kind of dancing around the issue of that loss and then extending that further, the loss of her original children. So, So this is almost like a little dance of them avoiding the hard topics.
And there's a new thing they can use to get around that, which is, little back and to and fro's about the book. Right.
Yeah.
Like, can the holy balls be busted or,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kevin, she kissed the lips of Kevin and it was good. And
Yeah.
Then we see Nora's go ahead. Someone have something?
Oh, I was just going to say after she says that and how good the kiss was, I think she just like she doesn't like slam the book down, but it just kind of tosses it like Matt would just gently set it down on that ottoman or whatever it was. And she there was like a thud. So
yeah.
Is this where we get to meet me in St. Louis?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My mom raised me watching that movie. Very familiar with that movie and very familiar. I was singing along with that song. So
nice.
That's my story. Like, any guys like to hear it? Me.
Mm-hmm.
I was waiting. Are you just teasing us?
Cabbage has a cabbage smell. Let's move on.
Okay. Nora's having trouble with the self check-in when it comes to the part where are you going to have a child on your lap? And the lady just goes, and she goes, do you have a child with you? And she goes, what'd she say? Nora was upset. Nora's like a lot of us have been there when someone asks you a question, the obvious answer is not there, and you're frustrated because something's not working. Nora I know I'm doing a lot of Nora defending here, but I would have probably had the same kind of snotty response.
I mean, yeah, but her thing is, as this electronics thing moves on, it is connected to this lens stuff for her, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought they did this really clever because, I mean, what we're going to hear in one of the next few scenes, but it's also a great parallel to season 1 Kevin's toaster.
Oh, yeah.
Situation.
With the bagel.
Because I do really think they do a good job in Leftovers of showing like really small throwaway scenes with the sole purpose of showing character get more and more frustrated, right?
Well, then she goes, well, this must be a blank spot. Just hit yes. You only have a single seat anyway. Do you have another kiosk I could use?
Yeah.
Because she doesn't want to hit yes. I mean, I don't blame her.
It's insult on top of injury.
Right.
Yeah.
Nora checks into the hotel. She says, I'm here to see one of your guests. She goes to MLB's room, and he goes, you know who it is?
Who is it?
She's like, they just called up. Like,
yeah. But she goes, it's Nora Durst. And he kind of looks out and all the thing, and then he explains how he's got this new suit.
Yeah.
Which is kind of strange, knowing that he,
very strange, maybe perfect strange.
He was on a very highly rated sitcom for a very long time. This man should not be bowled over by outfitted suits.
Any theories as to why they had these 3 lines in the show?
I was trying to think about that. Maybe just to show that he's. I don't think I've never ordered a suit from a hotel.
I mean, isn't he wanting to like look his best because he's about to do what he's trying to convince Nora to do?
Could be.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, yeah, could be.
No. I think why he has the suit, or which lines are you specific?
Why he's even talking about it being tailored.
I think he's nervous. I think he's got a job to do, and I think he's nervous. And yeah, that's what I think it is.
And he probably knows that she's not going to believe him, right?
He's probably in the same place he was when he went through it, which he probably didn't believe it at first.
Yeah, kind of nervous banter.
Yeah.
The subconscious coming out in the nervous situation.
Yeah, but me and Ro thought it just ridiculous, man. You got your hair done by Wardrobe and Hair for years. You shouldn't be stoked.
Yeah.
But your suit. Yeah.
Or did he?
I'm sure he did.
All right.
Sitcom star in the 80s, man. Come on.
Sitcom star. Well, Nora obviously wasn't a fan.
The only thing I thought about with that
was it the 80s or the 90s?
It was that crossover period. It's like late 80s, early 90s.
I'm gonna look it up. Go ahead. Don't wait for me. Keep going.
Anyway, where are we at here? So they go and they start talking. Well, he goes, I need to have your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Why? I know you're not recording this. I'm not recording this. He takes his phone and throws it into the toilet. Now it's almost like how many cops you see on TV that have a second gun. She needs a second phone, right?
Yeah.
What's the big deal? Why can't they record it?
Because a third party is contacting her, and this is only for specific people, supposedly. And everything that matters is up there in the clouds, right? So
that's the thing I was just working on.
So that was on for 7 years, huh?
Now I would say obviously whatever
eight seasons.
Whatever organization he's part of doesn't want to be traced, doesn't want there to be any sort of potential liability, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it's also really scary if you're her and he's not some B celebrity, he's just some random guy that takes her phone and flushes it down the toilet.
And then she asks, he goes, can we get some room service, get some rice in a bag, right? He tells her about different types of radiation, right? He goes through the whole thing, and she's like going, yeah, I understand. And he talks about radiation RADR. Did anyone write it down?
LADR.
LADR. Oh, it is an. I'm sorry, that is an L.
Low amplitude Denziger. Low amplitude Denziger radiation. That name Denziger they used in like the pilot when they're doing like the Congress hearings.
Oh, okay. He was one of the people.
Yeah, I think so. One of the scientists.
Cool.
Or they used it before.
They built a device and it's mobile from Switzerland, right? But it has to be on the move because people are out to get them.
Yep.
And they said the person he talked to that convinced him was called Lauren, and she's gone through. Gone through what? She went. She's
where the other 2% have gone, supposedly.
Nora said they're just incinerating them.
Yeah.
Which would be my thought. I was like, okay, you're just blowing these people up. 119 people have gone through, he says. And he has a little thing and says, this is their testimonial. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And she says something. He says, I have 2 degrees from Yale. Is that true? Does he have 2 degrees from Yale? I forgot to look it up.
The story goes that they were trying to. He auditioned for a role in season 2. They said we already made the joke in season 1, so we can't use you. So they got him back. They needed a cameo. They needed to pick someone, and in universe, they picked Mark Lynn Baker. And when they got to the scene, they needed to prove that these were smart people, not like people that could be taken advantage of easily, people that were classically, educated, they say.
Right.
So they had the speech written out, and the more they could give to him, they would. He said, well, and it wrote up, he said, the original script said, I have a degree from Yale. And he stopped. He said, well, do you want more? Because I actually have 2 degrees from Yale.
That's awesome.
And they were like, yeah, totally, use it.
I'm surprised Nora didn't hammer him on fact that if you need someone convincing me I'm not going to trust an actor.
More importantly, why didn't she ask him about? I mean, he's selling her on this idea, and he's been sold an idea. She should have asked him, "Have you been to the other side?"
Yeah.
And that doesn't even come up in conversation, which is so odd.
Well, maybe she doesn't want. Maybe she does. Maybe she wants to believe, and if he says no, I haven't, then maybe.
Yeah, that I was thinking that
she doesn't want. She doesn't want the truth. But again, I'm saying, if I'm going there and this actor's trying to. You could be acting. How do I know you're telling me the truth? You're an actor.
She has no basis for him being an actor. She knows that he was on a show,
yeah.
But I mean, that's not a show she watched by any stretch, right? Or, I don't think she was thinking actor. I do want to know you guys' take on why she went right to incineration as to what's going on.
Because that's what I would be thinking.
Yeah. That's what my husband said when we first watched it too.
Yeah.
But
it just seems the normal question to ask, because if you're, they went to the other side. It's like Eckhart said, how do we know they went to the other side?
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of like, to answer Ethan's question, I think it just shows like how we're still seeing hard-nosed fraud investigator who pulls no punches.
Right.
So that when you hear radiation, you can think about it in terms of somebody can die slowly of radiation poisoning, or if you put too much in there, it will basically disintegrate them, right?
Right.
So I think she meant to counter whatever he's saying with a really strong counter, right? I don't think it had any other connotation beyond that.
Well, then Nora says, I think you might be suicidal. And he gets really serious. And this is where his acting chops came in, I thought.
Big time.
Because he looks at her and he says, no, I don't want to kill myself. I want some fucking control.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was like...
He goes down all these reasons, like this was not arbitrary. 4 cast members.
Yeah.
What's the odds in that? She knows it's 128,000.
Because she gave it, because she knows.
And I totally missed that the first time I watched this, in the sense that the way they wrote this scene so well, at this point in time, both of these 2 characters who were completely different worlds suddenly overlap because they have that thing in common. That 4 of them, they were part of a unit, each part of a unit, and 3 of them left. Why did they stay behind? And they're grappling with that from that point forward.
Because
They've
in the
lost
beginning,
complete control.
maybe that's why in the beginning they had the suit scene, because he was nervous and awkward. It wasn't until she said that where he became focused and said, well, he was telling he was doing a good job of telling everything, but this is when he really, all right, this is what the deal is. I want some fucking control.
And my favorite is when, and this one I didn't really pay attention to, and I caught something when he goes, "Are you married?"
Right.
And he goes, "Not anymore." He goes, "Are you?" She goes, "I'm in a committed relationship." And he goes, "Well, I guess I'm just wasting my breath then," which is something that GR told people not to do. Don't waste your breath.
Right. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Speaking of the GR, I think it's a little odd that these people who leave videos behind that they're going into this machine have these living reminders.
Well, go ahead.
That's the thing, which is, again, this wonderful scene, but what bothers me about it is we never get some sort of a sense, or it's not even that we need it, but they both of them dance around the fact that here's a guy who's trying to convince Nora to do something which somebody else tried to convince him to do, but we never get an answer of if he actually went into the machine or not, right?
Right.
Well, and I think it's because, plain and simple, the story's not about him, and that's why I think it is.
Right.
And I just want to say about this scene, like, this is like, it's like peak Leftovers stuff we're in here, simply because it's like, it's an absolutely ridiculous premise. It's an absolutely ridiculous thing that they have the sitcom guy they've been making fun of for 2 seasons.
That could have been the title of the episode.
Absolutely, yeah. And right here in the middle, you're stopped dead cold because of this awesome, amazing, emotional acting scene.
Yeah, and this is, again, also peak Leftovers, and you get an actor to play like a 5-minute scene to perfection.
Right.
Right.
And in this case, it's an actor who's playing an actor, right?
Yes.
He's playing himself.
And then we go to Nora. She's sitting on her laptop, but she's smoking in a non-smoking room.
She's got that nailed down how to do that.
Yeah.
Is that how you get away with it?
I have no idea.
Okay. Because I know when I walk into a non-smoking room and someone's been smoking, I know that they've been smoking. Someone's been smoking in this room. You just can't get rid of it.
And we know she went through every single video looking for some sort of a hint.
But they were all saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where I'd be okay. All right, it's almost like a cult. They're just saying the same thing over and over. It's like,
and at one point in time, even one of the person gets corrected.
Right.
So you can see they're being instructed to say something.
Yeah. So if you want me to, here's the newspaper. Well, I don't get who the hell? What does that mean? I'm holding up a newspaper.
Just to date it.
I get it, but it's just like it's to me, that's not, for me personally, it's like I said, that's not going to do anything for, you got the LA Times. Well, that's great. I'm not going to go in this box be incinerated because you got the LA Times up there.
Yeah.
But is it really for Nora to convince her, or is it really to, in some kind of legal situation, protect the people that are doing it, or some kind of message to people that are still here that they're leaving to go see?
Well, it can't be some kind of for legally, because it's a mobile device now. It's on the move all the time. So obviously they're not supposed to be doing it.
Right.
Because they even say, well, how much is it? I forget we got to mention. She says, well, how much is it? It's based on your net worth. Mm-hmm. Well, she's got a house that's worth $3 million. So what's this going to cost her, right?
Yeah. No, the video is interesting in that, like, it kind of counters to his whole notion of secrecy and destroying the phone. It's like, well, why do you give them like purported evidence of these people that were involved? But right. To me, it's kind of like the way that scene was shot, where they start layering all the different voices on top of each other. It's in many ways, it's almost like, by watching each one of those, it's probably breaking down Nora's resistance. It's feeding her, like it's just pulling her into the con.
Yeah, that's what I was going to kind of say. Going back to what Ethan said about Nora being between two worlds, because I just love that right now. So I keep bringing it up, and it's like you don't know if Nora is in that moment. Is she thinking, this many people fell for this, or is she thinking maybe there's something to it because so many of these people are, So
Well,
and
she
as
obviously
an
wants.
audience,
She
you're
wants to
like,
believe. She wouldn't have gone if she didn't, right?
Yeah.
If
No,
she,
Yeah,
I
if,
mean,
she, if she can see her kids again.
mhm.
but by the time she gets that call to go to Australia, she's 100%.
She's all in.
She's all.
I do like that one person said they were born on 8/30/1980. My dad's birthday was that date, and my oldest daughter's
Nice.
birthday is August 30th. So I thought it was cool for me. Let's see. Nora gets in her rental car, and I kept thinking something was going to happen. I thought someone was going to come and talk to her. That nothing happened. She didn't show her getting in the rental car.
More importantly, we get to hear the music of Perfect Strangers.
Except slow piano wise.
Yes, that the Max Richter version.
But she can't get the GPS to work.
No.
She's, and it's frustrating. But she drives up to a playground, and who do we see? She sees Lily, an older, like she's probably about 4 or 5, right there, 4 maybe.
Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
And some kid takes a shovel out of her hand.
And Nora was ready to kill that child.
Yeah.
She was. She jumps out of the car and says, "That wasn't yours." And the kid's like, whatever.
And earlier, did you guys ever look at Nora's face when something clicked when it was going to St. Louis? Like she knew she could rent a car and go to Kentucky.
Yeah.
And it was close enough. That was part of her plan the whole time.
And then and then who shows up? Christine is there.
I was not expecting that the first time I saw it in any way, shape, or form. Christine.
Was Lily going to be there by herself?
I don't know, man.
Well,
I don't know.
Because at this point, we don't know that Christine has the baby, right? We don't know she got Lily back.
No.
No. We had no idea.
We had no idea. So that was a shock when she does show up.
Yeah, when you first see her face, you're like, "Whoa, they let that happen." Okay.
Of course, it wouldn't be a shock that Christine would leave Lily there by herself because she's done it before.
She's done that. We haven't seen her since season 1, right?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of season 1 coming back this season, which I love.
And she has another child.
Yeah.
Man.
And then she goes, "So what are you doing here?" And she goes, "Oh, hi, just
Nothing. Something for work.
Business.
Nothing. Got to go by.
Yeah."
It's really, really, really stalkery. Really, really weird.
But she did raise Lily for a year.
Well, yeah,
maybe
but
longer?
but a phone call saying, "Hey, can I come see the kid?" I mean,
Well, her
the answer could have been yes or no, but
her intentions, I don't think, were to talk to Lily. I think it was just to watch her.
just to sit outside a car and watch her. Yeah, totally normal. You're right. That's cool.
I would probably.
Bless Nora's heart, as we say in the South. Genuinely though, she's not being a creeper. We're not going to even go there with Nora after how creeper Matt's been. So she's lost her kids. She's lost Lily. She's going and seeing what she's lost, and it's devastating. And then when she sees Lily being picked on, that's when I think she's like, I have to get involved. But I think had that not happened, she would have just observed from a distance.
And it was even worse is because what happened was because Lily didn't remember her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that was the worst thing that could have possibly have happened.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
The only thing could make it worse is what Tommy says to her.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Let's wait till we get there.
Because I think what Nora's too. I think what they're trying to tell us too is that as Nora's thinking, oh, my kids won't say I see my kids 20 or 30 years from, so maybe that's why she's thinking about doing this, because her kids won't remember her. I think that's what the whole Lily scene was about Lily not remembering her, because there can't be a worse feeling in the world where your kids say, "I don't remember you."
And what's also sad is that Nora will never, ever, ever forget Lily, because Lily was there in a time that she needed her.
Right.
Right.
And so for Lily to just not remember her, it's real sad.
Yeah.
It's real
Yeah.
sad. And that happens in life in different, areas. And
You think she could have got some visitation, because as we know, Christine abandoned her in a bathroom and just left her.
But
and they adopted her.
yeah.
I think there's way more to say when we get to the Tommy conversation.
All right.
Yeah.
Then she's at the airport. She's in Austin, and she's trying to get the automated parking ticket thing to work. And well, I think we've all been there. Where the damn thing. So the guy behind her, ha, and she just gets out. I got to be honest with you. I was scared. She scared me. That was great acting, because
she's gonna fuck him up.
Yeah. She and the guy's like, okay, and then she lifts up the thing manually and throws it, and all that fun stuff. But I thought it was a great scene. But she goes and sees Erica, and she must see Erica a lot, because they seem to know. She seems to know a lot about her, because she says she asked her how she broke her arm, and she, you know me, I'm a klutz and all the different stuff. And she tells the story how she broke her leg the day after the departure, and they called her what'd they call her?
Nora Cursed.
Nora Curse. So, I mean, they put that in the paper, Nora Curse.
It may or may not be the Wi-Fi name of my network, but whatever.
But Erica wants to know how she broke her arm. Then she starts telling the story. She shows her tattoo, and her kids' names were on the tattoo under it. And then she had it. And then she starts saying, "I didn't want my." And it's a great scene, great acting. Now, she never won an Emmy, right? Is that
Who, Carrie Coon?
Yeah,
For the
leftovers. Yeah, just a crime. Anyway, so she's doing this emotional scene, and you never really think about it. She had her kids' names there, and everyone would have asked, "Oh, who are they?" "Oh, they were my," and she would have to explain that story over and over and over and over again. And I get it. That's you can see why she is. That's why she does what she does. Why she is kind of short with people. Why she is kind of, snotty with people.
And it's really funny that she called it the Wu-Tang Band.
Some nice Lindelof social commentary.
And then she says, she goes, "I think I'm going crazy." And she goes, "You're not going crazy." And then she goes, "Well, how are you dealing with it? How are you not going crazy? You what happened to Evie?" She goes, "I was able to bury Evie."
Right.
So we had John last week, who's still in denial. She actually buried Evie. So, and she's moved on. I mean, I don't know if you can completely move on, but at least she's accepted
closure.
Yeah. Closure.
And this is such a wonderful counterpoint to the conversation they have in season 2, where they're almost at each other's throats.
Right.
With being dead versus having departed.
Dealing with departures, right?
Right.
When they thought that Evie had departed. Yeah. And it's it's amazing to see how, I mean, they did the Erica character a lot of justice. I mean, they did a lot of favors in allowing this character to actually show there are ways that you can actually move past the grief, right? It's not easy, but it can be done, right?
Well, because you buy a trampoline.
And of course, what we see is the contrast to that is we see Nora slipping.
Yeah.
Right.
Slipping further and further. So the two characters have gone in opposite directions.
But they do get the nice moment on the trampoline.
It's phenomenal.
Yes.
And it's kind of what the stock and trade of the Leftovers is in season 3, right?
Yeah.
It's all this deep, heavy stuff, but we're going to have these big cathartic moments.
Yeah.
Just to give you a little bit of levity, show you there is a little bit of light there, even if it's getting up on that trampoline.
And it's just brilliant writing, right? I mean,
yeah, it's like we've had this deep conversation. Maybe we need to figure out how to end it here. Maybe they just go on the
Trampoline montage.
I remember when this episode aired, and I hadn't been watching the show live, but like there are people that I follow on Twitter who are like writers, novelists, who just were talking about how brilliant like this entire scene was, going from this deep conversation to then just jumping on the trampoline with Wu-Tang Clan playing in the background.
Well, you also have the great acting, though, too. I mean, it's great writing, great acting. I mean, we say it every week, but it is. I mean, when they're both talking to each other, and again, I'm sure that scene took probably 2 or 3 days to film. It's just the emotion they bring to it. It's just fantastic. Then we have Nora driving over the bridge, and she gets pulled over, and she goes, I'm dating the chief of police. And Tommy goes, are you? And so they have a talk, and she goes, you want to go for a drink? And she goes, oh, no, I just. And he goes, are you all right? Something he said. And she goes, oh, Christine called you. Or he said, does he say Christine called?
No, she said she called you, I think.
She called you, yeah.
Christine called you?
Christine called you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he gets into the car, and he goes, you drove from St. Louis to Kentucky?
Yeah.
By the way, who else, as he's like being judgmental here, was thinking about listen, Tomo, you were sitting on a park bench, lying on a park bench, getting wasted a few episodes ago.
Exactly.
Don't you judge Nora here?
No.
But it is interesting how together he seems here. I mean, it is 3 years later, but he definitely, I mean, maybe he's too much together because of what comes next in the way that he talks to her.
Right.
But it is a contrast, obviously, to season 1 and season 2.
Now, Laura said in the chat, I know you will talk about Lily later, but it still pisses me off that Lily was taken away from Nora.
Right. Wasn't taken away.
Lily wasn't taken away from Nora.
Yeah.
Christine showed up, and Nora gave up Lily.
Yeah.
And that's a big difference.
Now, you think she gave her up because she knows the pain of
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
As a mother, or as a parent.
So as a special FU to Nora for doing that for Christine, she changes Lily's name.
That's kind of that. Yeah, that's really.
I mean, the least she could do for Nora.
Yeah.
Having done that, seriously, that's what pisses me off.
Also,
that's ridiculous.
Also, where was the visitation rights? Can I see Lily once a month?
I don't think Nora would be able to do that, though. I think Nora has to make a break.
Was it offered, though? Was it? We don't know. But she said, we find out she gave it back, and he goes, but she doesn't even remember me. And you could tell she was hurting from that she doesn't remember. And Tommy goes, when I was 10, because Kevin adopted me when I was 3. I don't remember it. But when I was 10, they decided, and you can tell he's angry about it. Kevin and my mom decided that they were going to tell me that Kevin is not my biological dad. So I spent the next 10 years knocking on some asshole's door, and he could give 2 craps about me. Mm-hmm. You can tell he's upset by that. So this is where Tommy kind of goes into where his pain and his, what he's thinking.
That's right. He's projecting his pain on Lily's situation. So it's almost like, I mean, it might have. He probably doesn't even care that much about the Christine side of things. He's thinking about the confusion that it could cause Lily about, like, the confusion about who the mother is, right?
Because he said it didn't matter. He goes, that he wasn't my dad.
Right.
Kevin was my dad.
Right.
But this, but I needed to have I wanted, what. And I think it's, that abandonment thing is where somebody is, because he moved on, he had another family, and he took care of them. What was wrong with me? So he couldn't help it. He couldn't help but see that, or all that stuff. And then she says something. I wish you would have never left Lily for me. Or is that what she said? Yeah,
and she says it really. She gets really creepy when she says it too.
Well, so I'm looking at the text right now. this is fascinating because we were talking about this last episode. So, because Tommy says, so I wish they wouldn't have told me because I was already where I belonged.
So
And
essentially,
then Nora says, well, do you know what I wish? I wish you'd never left her for me. And that ties back into the whole thing with the wishes from episode 1.
The birthday.
Oh
wish.
yeah.
So that was really clever writing. Sorry, I had to just get that out.
oh no, I was just going to say that the part where let's see, Nora says, well, what do you? I wish you'd never left her for me. I'm sorry, I've lost it. Just calm. Sorry, it'll come back to me maybe.
And Tommy counters it by saying, I didn't leave her for you. Left her for my dad. I didn't know you even existed, right?
Right.
And that's an incredibly harsh thing to say and the way to end this conversation, right?
Now, is Tommy saying that because this whole the whole conversation where he brought up the part where he was 10 and found all this stuff out, the pain came back to him, and I don't think because it's out of character for Tommy to be a dick like that too, especially to Nora. And I think it had more to do with the fact that he did that, and he goes, "Well, I did,"
I think Tommy still sees himself in the role of protector of Lily and Will for the rest of his life. In some way.
Interesting.
Do you know what I mean? Because he protected her when she was just born. There was some connection there. He was asked to take care of her for the whole season. She's who Christine left Lily with.
Well, he took care of a pregnant Christine.
He took care of a pregnant Christine, and then he saved her on the bridge. They believe in some form of connection there. So I'm sure, even though it's at a satellite kind of thing around it, I'm sure he still feels that way.
And I would say that his comment, which it's really harsh, saying I didn't know you even existed.
Yeah,
I would say that's probably he starts the scene by being very much in control, but as the scene progresses and he's talking about these emotional things, he's becoming more emotional and he's saying stuff that is not completely rational. That's how I understand that.
I only knew Nora curse. I never knew Nora curse.
He's trying to do tough love, right? He's trying to do tough love, and it turns in, and because Nora is so formidable in conversation, it has to go to that place where it gets personal.
Right.
Yeah.
Otherwise she's not going to understand it.
You could kind of say that, when Tommy says, I wish they wouldn't have told me because I was already where I belonged, he's kind of in a way saying, like, had they not told me that, they would have saved me from all that pain.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so Nora's like, well, do you know what I wish? Taking care of Lily has been nothing but pain for her. Obviously, love for Lily aside, the tragedy that happens after, I think that's another interesting way to look at that scene.
It's also in real life, it's a tough. Do you tell or do you not tell? Because I've known people who were adopted that didn't know and found out, and just went ballistic. I mean, and I know people that are adopted that still don't know. I know they're adopted, but they don't know they're adopted. And
wow.
We better hope Jay never watches this.
No, but I know people. It's not that, but I know people that are. I mean, we all know people. I've known both situations. I know people that have found out, and we're happy they found out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just you have. I just don't. It's a tough thing. It's a tough decision.
I'm not a parent, so obviously I should be the first one to talk about this. But I'm not a parent, but I would just say that from an outsider looking in, it would seem that, and I understand that there are probably some cases where it's important to wait and or not tell for whatever, security, safety reasons or whatever. But I feel like honesty is always the best policy as soon as possible. A kid needs to get used to it. I've heard arguments about like, well, kids shouldn't know about gay people until they're older. And it's like, why? You're acting like it's a thing. Like if they accept that things are normal, they grow up with having no problems with them, having no problems with XYZ thing or whatever. So that's just how I feel about it. But anyway.
It's just I know. I'm just saying it's tough because I've seen every different reaction from it. It's like going, wow.
In this case, with Lily not remembering, do we think that it's a good thing that at some point she finds out that someone else took care of her for a year? No. Probably not.
Well, depending on her mom. Now, if is Christine a really good mom now? Has she grown up? Because remember, she was only 15, 16 when she had her.
Yeah.
I mean, so is she in what's been 6 years now? 7 years, right? 6 years, 7 was 7 years apart.
3 or 4 years, I think.
I think it is the parents' duty to tell Lily whether if it was for a year or not. I think when Lily turns 18 or whatever, she can make that decision for herself to find out more about the lady who took care of her during the first year of her life that was so traumatic, or not find out anything about it.
I can see with Christine's way she saw Nora, I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I feel like Christine wouldn't ever say anything because she may feel like ashamed of what she was going through at that time. Obviously, she wanted Lily back, so she would have no reason to, they changed her name. So to me, that's Christine running from the past. That's not even acknowledging the help Nora gave or the stand-in, mother figure that was there for Lily. It's not even, right. It's like she's completely erased it.
But wait a second. We don't even know who named the baby to begin with.
I assumed it was Tommy.
Right?
Right.
Like, anyway, well, that's not an issue. Let's move on. Next, we see Nora at Kinko's.
She's at Kinko's, and she said, "I need a picture printed." I thought for sure the thing wasn't going to work for her because it wasn't.
Well, that's why she asked someone to help.
She asked me to do it. Yeah.
And the guy goes, "Yeah, which one do you want printed? This one, that one."
That's a rough picture, man.
Rough and picture. She printed a big picture of dead Moses and puts it for everyone to see. And Sandy goes, You're really a heartless bitch.
Yeah.
And do we agree? I mean, did she have to go that far?
She's taking anger out on the way she did it.
Right.
Yeah. She's taking her pain from the last day and she's channeling it right there.
She wants people to be as miserable as her.
Yeah.
Nora comes home. She takes off her shoes, walks upstairs, and what do we have? Kevin's got his plastic bag around his head.
And I love it, man. They show you something next episode, and it's like, we address it this episode.
But she didn't even stun her. It wasn't even like, I was like, oh, okay.
She's got that game face, man.
Yeah.
She got that game face.
And Kevin says, I do it to feel. I don't want to die.
The first thing that I thought about was she probably remembered her having Hooker shoot her.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Season 1. So that the way that he describes that, I do that to feel, not to die. And the conversation earlier in the episode about suicidal thoughts. There is something interesting there in terms of that she has that same tendency in her personality that she wants to feel being pulled all the way to death's door, but not going through the door.
But you think most people would have gone, "What are you doing?" and gone and tried to and take the bag off his head.
She's seen a lot.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It's doesn't faze her, right?
It doesn't faze her, and I think it doesn't faze her because she's already got her mind set on this other thing.
Yeah,
and Kevin has already kind of become secondary.
Yeah.
And then Kevin says, I want to have a baby. I want to have a baby with you.
Before we say anything, this literally my favorite face acting on the history of the planet.
Of Kevin?
Of Kevin, after she says no and he has to cover it up.
Yeah.
Is there. I've made GIFs of this his laughing, but also crying. Like he wants to cry, but he's covering it up with the laughter.
To me, it looked like he was crying.
But I think there's a smile there because she's laughing at him. She literally started laughing at him.
Yeah.
he said a thing he's wanted to say forever, and she just.
Well, to be fair to Nora,
Well,
she's
it's a dumb idea. But
she's
yeah.
slamming her arm in the door, and he's got a plastic bag over his head. She says, "You want to ruin a good thing?"
I mean, they've been unable to even talk about Lily. They've
Yeah.
been unable to even talk about her. So why would Kevin even think that?
Because he thinks it's a way to get past that.
Yeah, you think he's using it as a band-aid, which you should
Oh
never.
dear Lord!
But the thing is, I mean, no. Let's unpack this. I mean, why do we think that it's a? I mean, Nora laughs at it, but if he's probably thinking in terms of if we have our own child that we can nurture and love, it will help us. Maybe it will help her in terms.
It'll bring us together.
Because I mean, he's just thinking from like one step A to step B. He saw how much happier she was when she had Lily.
Right.
And they obviously love each other, and they want. I mean, at this point in time, it seems like they're a decent fit for each other. So it's not such an outrageous idea. But I think she's laughing at it because it is such a cliche, like have a baby to solve certain problems. But in some ways, it probably was not such a stupid idea. I mean, her major loss were her kids.
Right.
And my biggest thing is I would still be, scared about another departure happening. I would never have a kid.
Well, plus every child she's had has left
gone away.
Right.
Mm-hmm,
So
yeah.
I see Nora's side.
Yeah, you could see both sides.
Should she have laughed like she did? No, but that's Nora.
Right.
That's just Nora being shitty.
it is not really. She's got a lot going on, but Kevin.
She doesn't want to have Jesus as son, right? She doesn't want to...
Okay, we're gonna have to start talking about how shitty Kevin is if we continue with how shitty Nora is.
Well, how shitty is Kevin?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, let thy count thy ways of Kevin.
Well, no,
yeah, start with one.
They're both doing things to each other. It's
to themselves actually.
Yeah.
She gets a phone call. It's from a woman.
It's all business now.
All business. Yeah.
And she goes, "Oh, it was work. I have to go to Australia.
Yeah.
Can I come with you?" And I thought she was going to say no. And she says, "Sure, come on."
No, she says yes because she's in damage control with Kevin now too.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So she says yes. First thing she does, she comforts him. She tells him about the tattoo. And then she doesn't want to say yes, but she says, of course. Why would I say no?
Mm-hmm.
And my biggest thing that popped into my head the first time I watched it is, all you did last episode was get your town ready for the 14 days, and you're going to go to Australia. But we knew the
Well, to be fair, he is putting a bag over it. Plus, his dad is there, right? He knows that, right?
Yeah,
he does that.
I mean, Australia's a big place. I mean, it's not like it's.
Well, is it? I mean, we're about to find out.
And then, and honestly, I gotta
say, some people
say,
think it's quite small.
Kevin is very cute when Laura's right. But this smash cut to Australia, this is kind of one of the things about season 3 that I don't want to say I don't like, but I don't like because of the short order of episodes.
Mm-hmm.
We get the last 10 minutes of this episode, which kind of robs Nora of some time, I would say.
Right, but
in the grand scheme of things.
But this whole scene is so much fun once you've actually seen the whole season 3.
Well, yeah, of course it is. I love the show. I'm just saying, but it's those little things that I mean, pick my box sometimes.
To me, this is like. By the way, Jack, this is the next scene where we see them in the police station, right? And we see like the other Kevin.
Well, for what we don't know he's Kevin yet. He's the chief of police.
Chief of police, right?
He runs into Skippy, the bush kangaroo,
right?
And then he goes back, and I think it's Jerry, right? The guy,
Jerry,
and he treats Jerry like crap.
Well, this is like parallel universe where if Lou had become head of Maple. Police, which is why I love it so much because this guy is just such a jerk. And
when I first saw it, I thought it was Lou,
right?
Because he looks a lot like Lou.
Yeah, but it's okay. So obviously this is Rewatch, but the first time we all saw this, we were just like, "What the hell is going on here?" It's just a great way of throwing the viewer off balance. which is what you have to do in Leftovers. And if you're Lindelof, you have to get more and more creative about how
Well,
to do
we
it.
knew we were in Australia because there was a kangaroo.
Right.
And the didgeridoo.
Yeah, and the stuff that I don't know the instrument they play, but it's anyway. It's the is that what it is?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I just know it's Australian. Whatever.
You should probably read more, but it's okay.
It's not worth it.
This scene, I don't know if Ethan, if this was what you were kind of hinting at earlier, that was like a low point or just like something that irked you with the series or this episode. What's Rose saying? Right. Okay. So let me further piggyback off what Ro just put. So what I was going to say is that I'm always saying show, don't tell, show, don't tell. Well, this is an instance where I feel like it was really lazy writing. We had to have a guy who hit a kangaroo. Then he had to get out and shoot it. Then he was mean to his coworker. Like, it had to justify his death. That's what that whole scene was about, in my opinion. They had to justify that it doesn't really matter if this guy dies because he's an asshole anyway.
Because we don't
and
like
it's so obvious. So
or it was just like it was a fun character to write because he's such a jerk. It's funny.
He becomes a much more fun character in his next incarnation, I think.
Right.
But I think Caleb is right. I'm glad he said what he said because of the episode limitations. Things like this happen this season occasionally, and you know,
well, because Jerry's closing up, and he goes, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Oh, do you have ESP? You can predict the future." Goes, well, yeah, no. Well, Jenny's not feeling well. Oh, who's Jenny? Is that your wife? Oh, wait, you're not married. Oh, that's your dog.
It's like a Cartman character.
Yeah,
I'm taking your car, clean the roo guts off of mine.
Yeah, and I'm like going, wow, this guy is just
such a jerk.
And my it's not my favorite misogynistic line because that's a bad way to say it. Because Caleb knows I hate women, right? He knows. But he says that if you don't run along, I'm gonna have to ask for Mr. Playford. You know, one of those like, is there a gentleman I can speak to kind of lines.
Well, he comes home. There's 4 ladies on horses.
Yeah.
Blocking the chief's driveway.
Yeah.
And they ask if your name's Kevin. Yeah. What's your name? And Grace Playford and she goes, well, we need your help.
Yeah.
He goes, well, I'm off duty. He's just a bundle of joy, but he's probably making the right decision here because, you know, anyway, Florence shoots him with a tranquilizer dart, and she looks at it like, well, he wasn't going to come with us.
Okay. The biblical passage that she quotes, which is obviously from the New Testament, right? And he looked at them and raised his hand, but they did not wave in response. So he clutched the stone to his chest and jumped into the water. That's a reference to when Kevin jumps into the water when Evie and her friends are escaping, right? But I don't remember him raising his hand to wave at them.
No, he just looked over.
He just looks over, right? So I do like that there was a little bit of like embellishment there in the New Testament.
It's got to be everywhere.
Yeah. So we can see how it's already like unraveling.
Even the word stone compared to cinder block is
exactly.
greatly different. And years later will turn into something way different.
And the stone was not tied to his foot.
Yeah.
You know.
We got Kevin's tied up. They don't even take his jacket off. They tie him up. And what was he on? It was like a teeter-totter type thing.
It looked like a seesaw almost.
Seesaw?
Yeah.
Looked like a murder machine.
As it turns out, yeah. They say, well, you know, they're going. He's like, let me go. He goes. She kept saying, we know who you are. Yeah. We know you. We know who you are. He's like, yeah. And he's using some choice words I'm not going to use. And he said, we'll see you in 2 minutes. And they put him underwater.
And they play that really creepy harp music that it makes the back of my hair stand up.
Yeah, I got to tell you, that's probably one way I wouldn't want to die. Just being held underwater like that. And he dies, right? And, well, the one woman's like going, she kept saying, what if we're wrong?
Yeah.
What if we're wrong? We're not wrong. What if we are? So she finally brings him up, and like I said, and she goes over, Kevin.
You can wake up now.
Yeah. So then someone comes outside the door and says, "What are you ladies doing?" And it's Kevin Sr. Boom.
Yeah.
What are you ladies up to, Black?
Yeah.
I understand the criticism of pairing this scene with like what we just saw with Nora, but they do have to somehow tie this together.
Right.
And what I love about this, and I'll ask our religious and film expert, what is the term for if you have a scene that you show like this, and then later on you explain all the events that led up to it? Because obviously we know from our rewatch that I believe it's the next episode, which focuses on him, kind of ends at this spot.
I think you asked that last time. I think I'm going to say the same thing.
He
I
said
said last
something
time.
else.
Yeah, but I think it's the same thing. I think it would just be a flash forward. I mean, I'm sure there's like a technical device, but here, just in television, all I can think of is, I mean, it's a flash forward. And it's probably because I've not seen the show in a while, but I'm a little bit confused as to if, and this may be spoiler territory for the next episode that explains it. I just am genuinely asking a question if y'all know or not. Mm-hmm. But if Kevin Sr. is there, wouldn't they know that Kevin Jr. is not Australian?
No, because I think what happens is what they explain is, or what we see in the next season, is that he's basically knocked out. And they go through his belongings.
That's right. Okay.
And I think they haven't actually spoken to him, or they've rarely spoken to him. And the I guess, is her name Grace?
Yeah.
Grace, yeah.
The one that has like the strongest, the one that's the most red pilled among them. Like she's looking for some, she's basically baking breadcrumbs with the Bible, and saying, "Oh my God, this has to be Kevin, who's like the police chief, like." In the next 100 miles.
I mean, you got to talk about somebody seeing that random written Bible or whatever that Kevin Sr. has on him for her to get this idea, and then she set sail.
Yeah, she was.
Let's start right now. I'll go and find Kevin's.
And there's a lot of that next episode. Next episode is all that, and it actually ends. There's a couple things that happen after this part,
but it's roughly like. Yeah.
Okay, I couldn't remember. I didn't want to get too much into the next episode, but I was like, wouldn't they know
Ethan,
for
give
sure?
Us some spoilers.
He was knocked out, so that makes sense.
So Ethan, was it you that was saying you didn't like this scene because it took away from Nora?
I just think that the sacrifices that are made because of the 8 episodes and that they have to get to Australia, in some ways, they make it work for them in amazing ways, and a couple things, it's really obvious that that's what they're doing.
Yeah,
I had no problem. I do agree with Caleb. It was lazy. I mean, obviously lazy writing when they make the guy out to be such a jerk. I mean,
and we all know from the beginning they're saying this one is taking place in Australia, so we all know that we have to get to Australia as soon as possible in a shorter season.
But I think they did enough of the Nora. What could they have done after what was she going to do after they left Kevin? Is that the scene where I got to go to Australia, and that should have been it?
I don't know what they could have done more, but it's like another thing where like they take the 10 minutes. They could have done Nora, but they also already took an hour, 60 minutes that they could have done something with Jill.
Yeah, or Michael.
Yeah, or Michael.
Like Michael, I thought about Michael in this episode in terms of like we don't get any more from him, right?
Oh, in the season?
Yeah.
No, Michael goes to Australia.
Oh, he does. I totally forgot that. I apologize.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll shut up.
All right, so I wasn't really okay. So this is beyond spoilers. Fans of watching, we're going deep uber spoiler. We're going into Book of Nora territory. We're going into last 5 minutes of The Leftovers territory. Just so
wow.
I was trying.
Spoilers beware.
I was trying not to, because I truly, honestly think the beauty of this whole series is one of the things that makes it brilliant is how it ends.
No.
You've already seen it.
Okay.
But because the season was written from the last scene backwards, I honestly think that it's good to point out when things point to that moment. Because that moment is so important and takes so much discussion. If you want to ask the question in that last scene that people want to talk about, even though I don't necessarily do, it's fun. But the question is Nora telling the truth or not? And in the end, it doesn't matter. But we're having fun talking, so let's do it.
So this episode is the perfect one to be talked about because it's all about Laz and Nora. So guys, I'm excited to hear what you guys
move up your scripts all the way back to that conversation she has with her brother at the very beginning.
Okay.
And I don't have anything concrete, but I want to know, does Matt truly believe he told Nora the truth when he said her parents were in heaven when they were burning in the fire?
No.
So, because Matt seems pretty adamant about the fact that he didn't lie. Do you know what I mean? He said he never lied. And if you watch that scene again, I believe Christopher Eccleston. I don't think he thinks that he lied. And I think there's a lot in there about what's coming at the end of the season.
So you think Matt said it either one of two ways, as in to make Nora feel better, or just that's honestly what he thought?
That's honestly what he thought.
Well, they were kids at that time.
Well, he was older than her.
He was a little older. Yeah. And I just think that there is something when we get to that final scene that there's going to be a discussion about if someone is telling the truth. What's the difference if someone is telling the truth or if someone believes they're telling the truth?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's going to be talked about.
You know what I mean? If they believe what they're saying, and does that count as a lie if it's not in fact true? But if they believe it.
Are you using Costanza rules here?
I don't know. I'm not. Well, another 25 days till Seinfeld hits Netflix. I'll watch the whole thing.
Costanza.
Because isn't this big line? Is it really a lie if you believe it? Like,
well, I mean, but yeah, is that the truth though? Is it a lie if you believe it?
So if you believe it to be true,
right? Is it really a lie?
Is it really a lie? If
I
the
think
thing
Matt,
didn't happen,
I think no, it's not a lie if you believe it to be true.
Right.
So the one thing I thought about, since we're talking about how this episode.
Hold on a second. I want to hear what Caleb was going to say.
Okay. I was just going to say, what did you just say, Jack?
If you honestly believe it's true, how could it be a lie?
Okay. Well,
if I think I don't, but say the world's flat. I believe that. Well,
right.
I'm wrong. But am I lying? If I honestly believe that to be true, I'm crazy, but I'm not lying, right?
Right. So this is a great.
And I apologize to anyone in the chat that believes the world is flat.
Don't apologize to them.
Won't be doing that.
To be Nazis.
We're talking about.
I apologize, Ro. If I know you didn't like that episode, but it's okay.
If you're a flat earther, please stop watching now.
Yeah,
but I'm just saying they're not lying, but they're because some people truly believe certain things. There's people who believe we never went to the moon.
There's people who believe you can take a horse dewormer and get rid of your COVID.
Right, but that doesn't mean that it's truthful.
It's not truthful, but they're not lying.
So how are we defining lying? If you
know,
I need to know that answer.
Okay.
And you're telling someone else something else.
If I know the world is round, but I'm trying to convince you the world is flat,
right?
I'm lying.
Right. Or I mean, the simpler example is you went somewhere yesterday and somebody asked, "Did you go there?" and you said no.
Yeah.
Then you're lying.
Right.
But if I don't remember it,
Right, but in this situation, Eckhart went to a store that was a physical, actual location, or didn't, or whatever. But that was a location he could have went to.
Yeah.
There's no flat Earth people can go to that we know of. There's no, I mean, science can discredit, a lot of, a lot of things. So it's
but people believe things. I mean, what are you gonna do?
I mean, they can believe it and they can think that, but if it's proven scientifically,
I don't know why I picked flat Earth. I was it just came to me.
Insert anything here. It's the great, what Ethan pointed out about, lying, and if you believe a lie, or if you
I mean, where this ties back to what Ethan's saying in terms of the last scene is the whole question there with Nora is, Nora says she went to a place and she was there for a certain period of time, and there's no one else that we know of that can prove, like, objectively if she went there or not, right? No one else in the story that we know of. So we as a viewer have to decide if she's telling the truth or not, right? That's where the whole tension comes from, right?
So when you grow up in a religious household, you have to decide whether or not you are going to believe what people are telling you.
Yeah, I think the parallel. Yeah, I think that's the parallel here in terms of what Ethan was saying with Matt, is that, like, he had to believe. The question is, did he believe if they went to heaven or not? Does Kevin believe that Nora went to where the 2% went?
Well, I don't want to go that far yet. I don't want to answer those questions, but I did want to point that out. I also wanted to point out that we're also kind of, Matt, if someone asks him to lie for them, he will lie for them.
Yeah.
And he will be a good liar for them unless his sister snuffs it out.
He lies up until a point where he has to tell the truth.
Mm-hmm. He can be easily broken.
He doesn't go out of his way to give the truth. But if he gets cornered, right, he does tell the truth.
Yeah, so he would lie maybe first to people he knew for 20 years, maybe, about something.
Well, he might lie about it, but is he lying? If you're not telling someone the truth, if you're not giving the answers, like, it's one of those fine lines where it's like, well, you didn't ask me that.
Right.
It's how you can justify lying to somebody where you go, that's not what you asked me.
This is big.
And it's also interesting to watch when Nora does lie about certain things to certain people. It's interesting to watch her behavior.
Yeah. So you're saying it runs in the family?
I'm not.
We will not compare Nora.
I am pointing out things that might pop up later that I don't feel like going over a litany of things when we get to that episode.
I don't know. This whole thing's giving me a headache, though.
Yeah.
And I'm not lying.
You're incapable of lying.
Give us some other spoilers.
That was it, man. I just wanted to be clear that I can't do this thing.
So the last episode you're saying is going to be like a 10-hour episode, because we're going to have to define what lying is, right?
No, because we took care of it here.
Okay.
We did not, because we weren't able to discuss the 2%, or Eckhart wasn't, like he tried to bring up. So we're just getting little
I'm sorry.
pieces here.
No, actually, the thing I was going to say about this was, we're talking about, like, breadcrumbs for the final episode. When we see her in the first episode and she looks older, she also looks like she has some sort of a skin condition, right?
Yes.
And in this episode, we learn that the machine involves, like, spraying with radiation. So that's where my mind went with that, in the sense
I think that's a theory that people had too.
Because it's kind of like, we see the video of all the testimonials of people before they go into the machine, but nothing from afterwards, right?
Now, I'm trying to remember the scene, but if she was able to go to the other side where the 2% went, why would she stay?
Why wouldn't
she stay?
I think she explains that.
Yeah, for the reasons she...
Because I cannot remember what the reason she gives. So.
I mean, in fact, again, a spoiler for that is given in terms of the way that she describes handing Lily back.
Yeah. Because they don't remember her. Is that what it was?
Well,
no. I mean, if you want to
see how happy they are.
That's what it was. Yes.
Yeah.
And decides that she moved through time and space and got to the people she wanted to meet, and then said, "Oh, they're happy. I'm going to leave."
In this episode that we just watched, there was also that scene that Mark Lynn Baker said to Nora about everything that matters is up there in the cloud. And that was like, I remember theories were like insane after he made that remark. Right. Like, I just remember it just, that one line people took and just ran with it and was like, what?
I have to say, I never bought the radiation or something was wrong with her skin. I always thought it was old Nora. Like, maybe not after the first episode, but when we got into that last episode.
I mean, once we realized how much time has passed, right?
Yeah.
But, like, it was, yeah.
And like I said, the biggest thing is you know, what do you take away from this from your gut reaction to what you take away from it from 2 weeks later after listening and reading and all this other stuff. So, two different things. That's all I had. I wanted to make sure that we're thinking that far ahead.
I've already forgot about it.
Well, that's your superpower, Jack.
All right, I'm really looking forward to seeing Senior next week with what is perhaps one of the best scenes in the entire show.
Which scene?
Where he's reading the Bible looking for references of himself.
The 13th, we're on, right?
Oh, and we missed one thing, which I loved, was that they referred to it in Australia as the 15th and not the 14th.
That's great.
Oh, yeah.
Because that actually gives us a time of when it happened, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
At least a window of when the departure took place.
Because it would have been the 15th for them.
Well, it's like, it kind of makes sense, because when we see the scenes of the departure, it's during daytime in New York. So then I guess you add, I don't know how many hours. It's probably like 10 hours or something like that.
It's quite a few, I think.
Yeah, it's more than that.
Yeah, it's like a 17-hour.
12-hour difference between here and Japan, right? So I forgot which way we're going. Are we going left to right? Yeah, so it's more. It's like 14 hours.
But another thing they're doing here, which kind of they said they were going to do, is they started pushing us in that direction, even though they said they were not going to push us in that direction.
In what direction?
Where the 2% went.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they weren't going to explain it.
But they're definitely messing with our emotions.
Well, they're messing with our emotions, but they're not saying this is what.
Well, Jack, it all depends on if you believe Nora or if you think she lied.
And we can talk about that in 6 weeks.
And we're done.
I'll have to decide. Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for everyone who joined us in the chat. Interesting conversation, as always. We'll be back next week for episode 3 of season 3. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.